How's it going, my friends? My peeps, my YouTube peeps, random people. And one of the things I like about YouTube is the fact that any random stranger can stop in at any time and say hi. And it's always interesting meeting new people. It's something that I really have enjoyed consistently over the years, is making YouTube videos about a variety of subjects. But you notice this interesting thing I'm wearing, in case you're curious. This is a hoodie that I got from a company here called Rainbow Rags. It was a Portland-based, it was run by a mom and her husband and son and daughter, a group of hippies that we grew up with, basically going to dead shows and hanging out with the Portland hippie community, if you will. In the early 90s, they started making these and selling them. So it's got like a little tree embroidered on it and stuff, and they're always made out of corduroy material because that had kind of a resurgence. So anyhow, I think I've had this thing for like 25 years, maybe 30 years. It's just crazy how long, and I hardly ever wear it. I just pulled it out of the closet. I was like, wow, this thing's actually warm. And you know, I mention it because it's something that I see in my closet all the time, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to wear that because it's old, or I don't like that anymore. And then the minute I put it on, I'm like, why the hell aren't I wearing this thing all the time? It's super warm. I think we run into things like that a lot in our life. The things that we have grown to, we've grown immune to their excitement. In other words, life is about, there's so much to say about novelty and novelty-seeking behaviors, and the way that humans are always looking for the next best thing. It's the reason people go shopping for new shoes and new clothes, if that's part of their addiction. For me, I'm a Goodwill shopper, so if I were to tally up the total I spend on clothes in a year, it would probably fall somewhere around the maybe very top, the $100 mark, and that might, if I buy new shoes, maybe a little more, but that's in a year. And sometimes I might buy a funky coat or something that doesn't fit me quite right, and I'm like, damn it, why did I buy that? But it's always a Goodwill, so I don't feel bad about it. So anyhow, the point being is that the novelty of getting something new or trying on something new, this is really what moves us in life. And at least I should say this is what moves me in life, and moves a lot of people. Not everyone's into novelty. There's kind of a liberal and conservative mindset, and I'm not talking about politically. I'm saying that they've found that people who lean towards left or right thinking tend to be more like conservative-minded. Like people who tend to be conservatives, they seem to enjoy things consistent. They don't like change or surprises. Whereas many very artistic people are just always looking for the change and always saying, let's move, let's try something new, let's do this and this. And so this is why it takes both mindsets to say, wait a minute, I'm going to hold you back from going out and changing everything that works, and the other person's going to say, hey, and nudge the person along to say, hey, let's try something new. And I guess the same metaphor can apply for trying something old on, like this, that you haven't tried in a long time, and saying, wow, I like this. I forgot how much I enjoyed this. There's so much like that I've discovered in life. And it's exciting to me to look forward to new things, exciting things, like where are we going to go on vacation next year? Or, when's the next concert coming up? But there's also the day-to-day excitements, like, all right, my cup of coffee. I guess it's not really an excitement, but, kind of a routine where we're filling our souls, if you will, I was talking to my oldest son about something similar yesterday, and he's trying to find his way in the world, and I was trying to explain to him, because how he thought things were, he's starting to see things aren't the way he thought they were. And often this happens to people who think in a very simple way, who realize things are much more complicated. In his case, with a dad like me, I naturally can't help but be a philosopher in his life, and I'm always telling him, oh, well, this is deeper, and this is bigger, and this is bigger, and think things through. And I think I learned a valuable lesson about why people, raise their kids to work, and why you hear older people say, hey, don't think too much about things. It's not a matter of not thinking, it's a matter of not overthinking. But anyway, in his situation, he thought the world was a lot more complicated in a certain sense than he's found. Well, not more complicated. I can't even think of the words. Let's just put it this way. He's at a point where he spent, you know, a couple of years thinking things were a certain way, and now he's changing his mind. And I told him, look, man, that's nothing. I've spent my whole life changing my mind. And I'll tell you something. Imagine the guy who spent 40 years of his life as a Christian and then one day decided, I don't believe this anymore. Or the one person who spent his whole life of some political mindset who all of a sudden changed his mind. And it takes a brave person to change your mind. You know, I've heard this said over and over that people don't change. And I'm finally growing up into, I should say, gaining the wisdom of people to be able to determine that for myself, whether people change. You know, so much of what I thought I knew, I thought I'd learned in my life when I was younger. And only now that I'm in my 40s can I realize that it's only experience that can bring you, not the I should say, the knowledge is always there, but the actual understanding of it is different. It's kind of like they say you could study Egypt for 10 years, but if you spend a week there, you'd probably learn a hell of a lot more about Egypt and what it's like. You know, you can read about the Great Pyramids, but going there is a completely different story. You're learning different things, but the feel of being immersed in something is a crucial aspect of it. So dive in a way, you know, and sometimes we dive into too much. Like for me, I don't keep a simple life. Like I'm always looking, you know, for what's exciting, what's new, you know, and I'm, as I get older, learning to ease that back and see my own seeking of novelty as well as my own seeking of nostalgia. And I guess that goes back to, say, the quote, it's a little bit of nostalgia. So I'm trying back on some of my old ideas too. Kind of like reading an old book, you know. I feel strongly this way about psychedelics, something that I used to promote a lot and say, hey, everybody should take psychedelics, and I still, you know, overall there's always going to be a small part of the population who reacts negatively to anything, any type of drug, any type of behavior, any type of food. There's always somebody who it doesn't work for. But in my mind, it was the overwhelming majority of people would benefit from taking a psychedelic journey. I haven't lost that. I still believe it, but I have a much more, you know, it was when I was like 17, 18 years old, I got a book. It was called The Psychedelic Experience. I remember I went down to Powell's Books and bought it. It was like one of the first books I ever actually bought from a bookstore. And it was by Timothy Leary and Ralph Metzner. And it was based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And they read it and found the similarities between that and a psychedelic experience. And so, yeah, I read that book and learned about setting. So the point being that even from a young age, I understood how important context is, how important who you're with is for these experiences. But it may seem like that doesn't fit into the video here, but it does, because I was thinking of nostalgia and psychedelics. When I talk about reading an old book, if you open an old book that you read before, you might hear something new in there. And for me, a psychedelic experience, it's not like I'm learning new things. I've taken hundreds of trips, but I'm relearning something that was important. And there's these little, you know, hints that are pushed at us by nature and by fate that just blow your mind sometimes. Like, you know, just for example, last night, my wife, and this all ties together perfectly. When I was talking about reading an old book, my wife is actually in there last night reading Where the Red Fern Grows, which is a book that I've read at least twice when I was younger. I loved it. It was like the first book I really ever read. And I walked into the kids' room and said goodnight, and she was reading, and as I was walking out, I just heard the first line of the chapter she happened to be reading. And it said, day after day, I flew to Grandpa's store, and I would put my coat on the counter, and this bell went off in my head, this nostalgia. It just took me way back, and I realized that I have a journal I've had since 1988, and I write in it about once a year. You know, it's only this thick, but it's just a little tiny journal I got in my stocking when I was like 12 years old, and I wanted it to be my life journal. So I'm only, you know, like a page a year. But back in the old days, in the early days, in like 88, I think, I wrote on this one page, day after day I flew to the store, Grandpa would shake his head, and then I said, then I would barf all over his counter and take a dump on his head, some stupid thing that a 12-year-old would say. But I never knew where that line came from. I knew it was from a book, and when she read that, it was like everything tied back together, and it was this, one of those oh shit moments, you know? It's, we get caught in these memory loops, these history loops, or, and some people, it can become really intense for some people. They start to have these signs and symbols that they see that, I don't know, kind of trap them in this idea that the universe is speaking to us, like seeing triple-digit numbers all the time, and how your brain can manifest that. And you really learn how to control your mind. In that sense, you can learn to control your nostalgia, to really still enjoy the great things that other people may have just gotten tired of. Like for me, getting something new means it's new to me. You know, I've never bought the newest, latest phone or car or anything like that, nor would I want to. I have no need for material stuff, except for the things that occupy my time and give me passion. And when I use that passion, and I have the time to do it, you know, like for example, I've got my resin jewelry out there, and for the last few months, I put a lot of time into it. I go out and I make all these cool little, you know, go collect some natural things, you know, like whatever it might be, pine cones and whatnot, and then spray them down and dip them in resin and put them in these bracelets. And I made this huge thing of necklaces, bracelets, and everything for next summer, so I could sell them at like dead shows and festivals and stuff. And it was just this crazy passion for a few months, and it's still there, but all of a sudden I just kind of like stopped doing it for a little while. And I don't beat myself up over it. And I know all of you probably have something in your life that you've really found that maybe moves you, and then after a while you're just not interested. And that's okay, because you can go back to it. You can put the coat back on down the line and you know, regain that nostalgia. So that's my rant for the day. Hopefully it doesn't fall on deaf ears or come across the wrong way. I don't know how it really could. I know I tend to ramble because, you know, there's to explain that a little bit. You know, I could sit and I could write out what I want to say before a video, and what that would do is trap me in that reality of what I'm going to say. I feel sometimes like the universe speaks through me in a way, that my subconscious at the very least is saying things that I'm not even aware that I know. And sometimes, like, first off, I never go back and I never watch my videos before I upload them, and I very rarely go back and watch a video. I might have it playing in the background while I'm like answering comments, but sometimes I'll hear something I said and I'm like, I cringe. Ugh. But other times I say something and I'm like, how the hell did I know that? I mean, where did that come from? Is that true? And then I'll look into it more and be like, I knew something I didn't even know I knew? Like, what's going on in the back of my mind? And so being human is about embracing all of that, all of the excitement and all the bad times, which I haven't even brought up, because, you know, anybody who's been in pain, and I've talked about it a million times, you know, I've had physical and mental pain, so I know all too well. I had sciatica, really messed me up for a while, and I lost my father when I was young. Poor me, poor me. I don't play the victim. It's my life is what it is, you know. Coming to terms with memento mori, which means you must die. It's an important factor. So I think it makes life richer when you do. Oh, hi, kitty. So I'm going to go now. Say hi, Callie. Say hi to everyone. You want to say hi? My cat, my last remaining pet. They remind us of our mortality. Oh, sweetie. Thanks for watching, and as always, leave a comment if you feel so inclined, and if you want to contribute to my channel, the Patreon link is in the description, and I should also say thank you to my patrons. It's pretty awesome. And if you have any questions, you know, I try to answer every comment I can, you know, for the reason of I know people want to be heard, and I know a lot of people don't have a lot of people to talk to, and I feel guilty if I can't answer a long comment or question. But I do read every single one of them. But if there's something important and you want to ask, just let me know. You know, I do my best. So I'm wishing you all the best of days, and a future full of a past of nostalgia and a future full of novelty. Blessings to you all.